Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Amina here. So you're leading a company that was formerly the Private Suite, but it's a really interesting, pretty different concept where you've got the opportunity to have this like private area where travelers can be at before their flights. You help them get to it, and they can spend a lot of time with just avoiding this entire typical airport experience. And you have a pretty unique background to be leading this company. I mean, you've able to speak five different languages. You've been to a lot of different places, and you guys have now started this in one area. You're scaling it more, so I'm excited to have you and to get into your story.
Thank you, Ben. I'm really excited to be on here. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
Yeah, great to have you. So, how did your passion for wanting to be a business leader for this specific area, like how did this interest of wanting to lead something begin?
I think that I've always wanted to be the architect of my own destiny. I don't think I make it for a very good employee. Uh, I enjoy the challenge of the responsibility of leadership. It's not easy, but that's the kind of challenge that I enjoy. Obviously earlier in my career, like you can't really jump right into that, but I've always pursued entrepreneurial endeavors on the side as side hustles or just little things to kind of flex that muscle. In college, when I lived in China, when I went to business school, there was always some risk taking on the side. And then, when I finally kind of was more mature in my career and had the opportunity to fully dive into leadership, entrepreneurship, risk taking, all those things, it felt that I had already had a few reps along the way, right? So it's not like going from, you know, 0 to 100. It felt like it was an escalation towards my career, but it just, it's not for everyone. Some people make great number twos and number threes. And I always say there's no shame in that. Like in French, we say, il faut de tout pour faire un monde. That means like you need a little bit of everything to create a world. Not everyone can be a CEO. Like that doesn't work. Not everyone can be, a number two employee. That doesn't work. So it's like you just have to find where you fall. Right. And for me, leadership is what I enjoy and the challenge I think I'm signed up for.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you definitely have a different kind of edge that you bring to this because you've been a lot of different places in the world. You have unique experiences. How has like your background in terms of education as well, and just being exposed to these like to China, to the kind of ideas there helped in terms of the way that you lead today?
I think it's maybe not as linear as you think, but with PS, what we're doing is we're creating a new category entirely. There's no such thing until we came along as private airport terminals for commercial flyers. And so when you're starting something completely new, when you're turning an existing concept, in our case, the airport, upside down, you have to come at it with like a tolerance and an open mindset of like anything's possible. The canvas is blank. And I think, my experiences of living in so many different places, learning, being thrust into completely new environments to like live a different way, eat a different way, talk a different way, right? Like that to me I think has trained me to always suspend my own assumptions and say anything's possible, if that makes sense. And I think when you're creating something new, you need to come into it with that mindset. You can't be rigid. You can't be like, well, this is the way it has been, this is the way it should be, or this is the way it's been done. And so we're gonna just, be 10% better or whatever. Like that doesn't work. You have to just like be able to turn everything upside down. And to me, always being so flexible and exposed to so many different things, I think has prepared me mentally for this kind of challenge where like anything's possible. Let's question everything. Like why at the airport do you have to stand in line? Why do you have to have concourses? Why do you have to clear security before you hang out in spaces? Why can't it be the opposite? Because then, by the way, you're trapped if your flight's delayed. Like questioning all these things. I think that mindset comes from so much exposure to so many different things and seeing the art of all that is possible.
Mhm. So just kind of like getting into the creation of this company, like how did this idea happen? Because you mentioned it's a really different type of idea. You're building something entirely new. How did you guys get this really going and convince an airport to have something nearby and work with you? Because there's not really anything like it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't take credit for the idea or for the early days. I joined early though as
Mhm.
the first leader to build it, but the idea was born within another company actually
Mhm.
that saw the problem directly. A company called Gavin de Becker and Associates, which is a company that's in the security, in the protection business, and the founder of that company, Gavin, saw that his, very influential, very high risk travelers, when they flew commercial, because they do too at times. I think people think you either fly private or commercial, but there's a big gray zone in between. That He found that when they did fly commercial, they needed a different kind of privacy. And so he came up with this idea, and it was inspired by similar concepts that exist around the world that are not exactly this, but there's shades of it. He got it going from a legislative perspective, which is really hard. Convincing Department of Homeland Security, convincing the FAA, and big government bodies like that. And then I came in to essentially commercialize it, to say, okay, I think we have something here. How do we turn this into a business? So, all this to say, this is not unusual, right? Sometimes the founder is not the CEO, right? Sometimes it takes a different mindset, takes a different skill set, takes a different risk appetite, even. And this is that classic case.
Mhm. So, Amina, what drew you to want to be involved in this? Like, what excited you about this? Why did you want to lead this?
Yeah, Ben, like my career has been so kind of random, kind of a zigzag. I started off in finance in China, and then I went into kind of pure play hospitality from the development to operations side. And then I went to business school, and then I went to private equity. Along the way, by the way, had a handbag company, and just kind of random. And when I was approached by our investors, who are, as of a couple of weeks ago, are no longer investors, we actually exited the company. Um, but my former investors, TPG Capital, when I was approached by them to lead this, it's like when I saw it, I was like, I am designed in a lab to build this business. It's like all the random disparate stuff I'd done throughout my life finally made sense. It's like in retrospect things make sense, right? At the time they might not, and this was one of those. So it was like, okay, I can do this because I know a little bit about hospitality. I know a little bit about real estate. I know a little bit about finance. And this was kind of like a mishmash of all those things. And so all those skills I acquired along the way, I think prepared me, or at least gave me the confidence, which I think is the most important part. Whether or not like they truly prepared me or not is kind of irrelevant. They made me think that I could. And that's the most important thing.
Definitely, you have to have that confidence to be
Fair.
able to do anything, but
Yeah,
especially.
well, I just felt I was like, this is for me. I can do this. I can see it. Now, whether or not that was actually true is irrelevant, but here we are. So I made it come true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it seems like it did work out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Not
So,
bad.
why was Los Angeles such a good place for you guys to start? Was it just they were more receptive to it government wise, and how has it been operating this in Los Angeles?
Yeah, for us, one of the tenets of what we offer is privacy. And there are some people in the world that desperately need privacy, right? They need it for their own security, for their peace of mind. And Los Angeles, no secret, has the highest concentration of those people. So it was sort of the low hanging fruit in that, and Los Angeles as a city empathizes for those people because there's a lot of them here. And so, we know that a public figure, if you see a public figure walk down the street in LA, you're not going to go ask for a selfie. It's like, it's kind of this like, unspoken social contract between everyone. And so as a result, it was a market demand uh, aspect for sure, where there's enough of these people here to at least kickstart the business. Now, the business has, by the way, evolved to be much more than a privacy product. I would say the privacy traveler is probably 15 or so percent of our business. So not much anymore, but certainly that was the low hanging fruit day one. But also on the supply side, in terms of like the airport authorities and things like that, in Los Angeles, empathize for sure. Let's create something for these people with special needs, right? For their own safety. So that's why LA was the perfect thing. And I always say that in a business when you're starting off, like go like narrow to exactly who your first customers are. You can always expand, but find the evangelists, right? The people who are like, oh my God, I've been waiting for this my whole life. Even if it may not be, the mass of your market, in our case, 7 years in your early days, the people that need this, right? And for us, those are the people that needed it in the early days. And so that's where the magic happens. So that's where the flywheel starts going, because those people sign on quickly, talk about it, wish you existed, for 20 years.
So like right in the early days, you mentioned you had this like more of a niche. How have you like looked at, because you talked about how like it's only like 15% of your customer base today. How have you like advanced this customer base into what it is currently? What efforts have you done there?
Yeah. So when we first opened, we had essentially, and this is this is one way to build a business, certainly a luxury business, which is what we are, is to start with the marquee product, the halo, the most, the Hermes Birkin bag. It's like the most iconic thing that will cement your brand. And for us, that was the private suite product. The private suite product is exactly what it sounds like. When you fly through our terminal, say, Ben, you were flying from LA to London on British Airways or American Airlines, and you were flying at the front of the plane, and you wanted to, in addition to have a premium in-air experience, you wanted to skip the airport, right? Because you're spending $15,000 on a ticket. Why not also not deal with the hassle of the airport, right? So then you would purchase a PS experience. The private suite experience at PS is you come to our terminal, which is removed from the public terminal, so you're not dealing with all that traffic, and you hang out in our terminal. There's no check-in counters, there's no lines, there's no concourses. You're not in the sausage making. You're not weighing your bags and taking out tickets. Like, that's all happening. The magic's happening in the background. You're instead enjoying your time, your 90 or so minutes with us in a beautiful space, great food, great drinks, massages. Anyway, you have a choice. You used to not have a choice. We opened just with private suites, and that's exactly what it sounds like, or you're in your own private suite. So if you're a public figure, that's what you want. You want to be alone. If you're with friends or family, you have that intimacy, and it's like a hotel suite. There's its own restroom, showers, day bed, etc. And that is a $4,500. Now it's gone up, but it's roughly $4,500 product. And so we opened with that, and that kind of cemented us as this privacy luxury product. Okay. And it allowed us to, frankly, to get our training wheels in a very small focused market, right? So we became experts in that. It was clear to me, it was clear to everyone that, to the board, that you can't build a business on a market that's like this big, like that's not scalable. But at least allowed us to cement the brand, to kind of master our craft, frankly, and to build a reputation amongst an evangelist customer base that is really powerful, public figures, etc. Then, and the pandemic, by the way, delayed these plans as it delayed plans for many businesses, especially travel businesses. But right when we realized the pandemic was not, in fact, the end of the world, so somewhere around like fall 2020, we launched the Salon, which is our lounge, which is more mass. It's not a mass product. This is absolutely a premium product, so I can't look anyone in the eye and say this is mass, but it's relatively more mass, which is, instead of $4,500, it's $1,000. And it's more of a social experience. So it's centered around a bar. There's other people in there. You're still skipping TSA or getting expedited TSA, I should say. You're still getting driven to the plane. You still have expedited customs on arrival to get the food and drink, but it's more accessible. And that really allowed us to address a much bigger market. And that, if you look at our growth chart of our revenues, which I won't be sharing, it's a hockey stick from kind of the moment that we opened that. But I do believe that like we couldn't have opened that day one. We just were not prepared. There was so much product market fit work. There's so much when you're doing something completely new, like you need to take a minute to like truly understand your craft and understand your customer. And so we needed those, 3 years of doing that. And then we were prepared. And my goal is to find more ways to make this accessible. And there's more ways to do that. But that's for later.
Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I mean, how it laid the foundations for what you're doing now, and now that's become the biggest category.
That's right. That's right. But
Yeah.
I think like we needed to do the first thing
Uh huh.
to get this for our own learning, but also for cementing the experience and making it desirable to people. If we just opened with a lounge in a different building, people would be like, I get the free lounge at the airport. Why do I need to pay for this lounge? But you kind of have to train, educate the customer as to what it is along the way.
Makes sense. So, I mean, you're also thinking about now Atlanta as your next place,
It's
Miami.
open already, Ben,
It's already
actually.
open. Okay.
Yeah, it's been open just over a year. We celebrated our 1 year about a month ago.
Wow, that's
It's
amazing.
been awesome. Yeah.
So, how are you thinking about expanding to areas like Miami, Dallas? What do you want to do different when you build these places up from the beginning?
Yeah, and Miami and Dallas are under construction right now. We're excited to open them next year, and then we'll have a couple more announcements hopefully in the next few months. What are we doing different? I mean, so first of all, we're doing a lot of things differently in the sense that you're always learning. And so, and then a fixed asset business, where there's a real estate component, you make a lot of decisions that are hard to reverse, right? And so then you learn on them from a design, a planning, programming, and you make the next one better and better. And by the way, like Four Seasons is still getting better and better at every hotel. You're never like plateaued in your learning. So there's a lot of micro things there. But generally speaking, it is the same concept. What we're excited about is to localize the experience because unlike a hotel, it's not unrealistic for you to be at two PS locations within 4 hours, right? So you could be flying from LA to Atlanta. People do that today. We greet you on both ends. And so, one thing we think about a lot is how do we maintain your expectation of that experience, the luxury, the premium service, the feeling, right? But still give you a uniquely LA experience on one end, and when you land and a uniquely Atlanta experience on that. And so that's the fun part. So we're having a lot of fun in Dallas and Miami as we're conceptualizing those around food and design and and kind of the soft touches. But generally speaking, the promise is still the same. The promise is to create airport experiences that people love. And we keep pushing the bar there.
Yeah, I think that those are two great areas to expand to. Miami's been it's a whole
Yeah.
different place now. How do you
I
also?
know. And it's so funny. Sorry to interrupt, Ben, but like we underwrote it before COVID, and we thought it was a great market. And then after COVID, it's like
Yeah,
it's become a truly cosmopolitan city. A lot of New York, Miami commuter traffic. It's the capital of Latin America, practically. So it's become a really really good market. We can't wait to open there. And Dallas also fantastic market dynamics there for us.
yeah, definitely agree. So, I mean, like you mentioned, these are physical locations. There's a certain amount of investment. How do you view risk taking at this point? Like, how's your risk taking evolved from the different experiences you've had, but like to this point now with the company? What are risks you want to be able to take? How do you make these types of decisions?
Yeah, for us, the how we grow, there's obviously like in box growth, but really the growth comes with opening new locations. I think we've become a lot more confident about our expansion strategy in new markets. At the beginning, we tried, maybe we had to be more thoughtful about the sequencing of like, okay, LA's first, no offense to Denver, but Denver's probably not gonna be second. That's too like small and maybe, secondary, tertiary of a market for what we do. Now, the sequencing is less important because the network effect is proven, is there, is so strong. And so it's almost like we'll take them as they come. So it might be a long time before we get to New York, say. But in the meantime, we're okay doing Denver, Seattle, and like taking those risks because we know our customer. We know we can see where they're flying. We know how to follow them everywhere. in the early days, you're still getting to know your customers. So you're having a little bit of doubts and you kind of want to push those risks down the line. But for us, it's the expansion strategy is very aggressive at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as the more places you expand, the more you're going to learn. And there's our other great markets. It's not like you're
Yeah,
just locked into.
definitely.
You have to
Yeah,
do more right away.
definitely. And if you wait, you can't let perfect get in the way of good, right? It's like if you wait for like the perfect sequencing, like this is going to be a long, long network building, initiative. So at some point you just have to roll the dice and say, you know what, like Denver, we wished was number 8 or whatever in expansion, but it's here. The real estate is here. The airport's ready. Everything's lined up. Let's go.
Yeah. So just the last question I have, what do you aspire to do now? Like what are some of your short-term goals, your long-term goals, both like personally and then professionally with the company?
Yeah, I mean, we have actually this is a timely podcast. And this is public. It's been announced, but we just got acquired by a group called Groupe ADP. They're from France. They're based out of Paris, and Groupe ADP is one of the largest airport operator slash developer slash uh, um, owners in the world. I think that they touch 26 airports in one way or another, many that they own and operate, including Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. They have heavy involvement in Istanbul Airport, which is major. They own New Delhi Airport, etc. Anyway, they are in this world. They just acquired us, and we're really excited because they will be, and they are and will be great long-term custodians of the business and of the brand. And in the short term, we're looking at integrating their existing Paris terminal, a VIP terminal, into our portfolio. So I'm really excited for that challenge of how do we integrate an existing VIP terminal that is operating, that has its own team, that has its own SOPs, that has its own essence into PS and create one arc, an international one at that. So there's a lot of challenges that come with that. So that'll be a really just exciting challenge for the entire kind of management team and our team of integration, because we're so used to creating things from scratch and molding them the way we want, that integrating something existing is just a different challenge. So super excited for that. And then obviously for all the expansion to come in the US and internationally at this point.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible opportunity there because they have that access to these airports and when integrating
That's right.
something in
That's right.
quickly,
They own
like
them in some instances. So there's a match made in heaven. So we're super excited about the opportunities that come with that.
100%. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I think you've already been able to lead this company to great heights, and it's a great niche that's really needed. And I'm excited to see where you're going to take it next. So thanks for coming
Thank
on.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.